Now, Webster Mfebe, who's the CEO of the South African Forum of Civil Engineering Contractors, has written an article about a group calling themselves Construction Mafia. Now, they allegedly threaten construction site managers to give them contracts. For more on this, I'm now joined by Mr. Mfebe himself. Thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Peter, and the viewers.
Hearing this term, Construction Mafia, sounds quite incredible and almost the plots of telenovelas. How did we get to this?
Well, first of all, I need to start by saying the construction industry has become a new battlefield for the implementation of a fake radical economic transformation which is propagated by a few emerging contractors to the benefit of their friends and the close associate, which has nothing to do with the elevation and the participation of the majority of black people who remain economically disenfranchised. It came at the peak in 2016, at which point I went to authorities to say they need to come together as the security cluster to deal with this problem. At that point, a black contractor who refused to succumb to the needs of the construction mafia was killed. That case is dead cold up to this day. That family hasn't had a closure. They come to construction sites with AK-47 assault rifles demanding participation in contracts.
All right, so what you're saying is that there's it's sort of an organized network now. They've built themselves up over time, that they go to construction sites and they say, include us, we want at least 30% or else this thing doesn't carry on. Who are these people?
Well, these people form themselves in what is called various business forums, okay, who at some point also compete against each other. But in 2017, a new development happened, whereupon I engaged the new structure named Forum for Radical Economic Transformation, FRET, which then became an umbrella body for all the business forums at that time. And that structure, because it is organized, it is easy to deal with, and they made commitments to me on behalf of the industry that they will not disrupt. Instead, they will work with us. And indeed, they did exactly the same. I remember at some point a project in Hammansdale was disrupted, but it was not disrupted by them, but there was a sprinter group of taxi drivers now who constituted themselves as construction, and they intervened effectively. But the value, just to give you an idea of disrupted sites, construction sites in South Africa at any given point, depending on the intensity of those, 40.7 billion rand. If it was another country, there would have been a state of emergency.
So the question I have is, you know, we've seen the president even speak about it, calling it radical economic robbery. It's been going on for 4 years. Why has it been allowed to escalate? Because you can't arrive anywhere with an AK-47 and impose yourself on people. That's against the law.
It is against the nonchalant attitude, laissez-faire attitude on the part of law enforcement agencies add to this problem. We have, among ourselves members, accumulated about 51 court interdicts against these people. To our knowledge, no one has been arrested, including the case of murder that was committed. What happens is that when our members call the police, they arrive on site, they shake hands, and they hug and go. Nothing happens. Then in a mafia a situation like it happens in Italy, for an example, I would like also to juxtapose the current situation with the international experience. Police get involved. For example, in 2010, in Italy, when they arrested 300 mafias, amongst them were policemen that were involved. So it explains why. And the other complicated phenomenon is the alleged involvement of political leaders at local, provincial, and national level who are alleged to use some of these grouping as their paramilitary organizations.
Have some constructors been forced to hand over portions of their contract to stay safe?
Well, they would not admit openly because that would be illegal because extortion is illegal.
Yeah.
It's regulated in terms of the Prevention of Organized Crime Act in South Africa. But they have been complaining that these demands are being made on them, and when they refuse, sites remain disrupted.
All right, talk to us a little bit about, and it seems as if this, I don't know whether it was prescribed, National Treasury saying that 30% of any construction, local suppliers must be engaged, and that these forums are using this as a vehicle to impose themselves.
Yes, the 30% that goes to enterprises, local enterprises in any project has become a problem because some have different interpretations on it. But the fact of the matter is that, as I've written an article in the Shapeshifter magazine entitled Captured, Conquered, and Incapacitated by the Construction Mafia, I make the point that the pre-tender engagement sessions with communities before contractors come is the responsibility of the contractor. And to implement that, SANRAL has done very well in what they call project liaison committees, PLCs, which are constituted of traditional leaders, youth, women, and other various business forums and all that before the project is implemented. Then they gather information who has the competence to do so, and then that gets also handed over to CIDB and the central data supplier base at National Treasury. That is beginning to yield results, but the last disruption that we've had is a project in Durban, over 2 billion rand of one of the member companies that belong to SAFEC. That was in November. It is subsiding, but it is still there. The most important development milestone was our engagement with the NPA on 8th October last year, where it was decided, I proposed that this matter be dealt with in terms of the Prevention of Organized Crime Act, because this is organized crime, highly armed, heavily armed people, and there was an agreement. This has to be completed with the South African Police Force services, and the National Commissioner's Office has postponed meetings 5 times already, but NPA is willing to be part of that meeting so as to complete this approach of dealing with this thing, not like a boy from a squatter camp who has stolen a chocolate from a supermarket and it gets registered as crime. It should be treated in terms of the Poker Act, and there is an agreement. That is a biggest milestone. And added to that, the Minister of Finance, Tito Mboweni, also wrote back to me recently, acknowledging the letter that I had written earlier in March, in April, before the general elections, saying that he has taken note of that. He is worried about what is happening in the construction industry. It is important, and he has escalated this matter. He will escalate this matter to the cabinet security cluster accordingly. And the president also pronounced on this as well, to say at a particular time he will meet with the industry.
We've run out of time, but I can't help asking, have you been threatened yourself?
No, I've not been threatened, and I do not take kind to threats. I've been engaging directly with the business forum, and the engagement has been fruitful and respectful.
All right. Mr. Mfebe, we're going to have to leave it there, but I do think we probably need a follow-up conversation to see just how far these things go. But thanks so much indeed for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you very much.
You.